Although it's been a couple days since we met the fairies and they made their offer, I haven't been able to get it out of my head. The visions themselves are just slush by now, with the memories of them being eroded into non-existence. But the feelings remain. The feeling of belonging and of freedom. There's something else I can't get out of my head though, and she's sitting right beside me.
Madison, here they come.
Sure enough, a mother deer and her fawn come traipsing out of the bushes, no doubt out on their way to get a drink. Starlight and the waxing moon make them look like a ghost at first, barely visible in the dusk. Upon entering the clearing, they see us and both freeze. Abigail smiles encouragingly, reaching out a hand towards them. After a moment's hesitation, the fawn takes one tentative step towards us, then another, and another.
This one's name is Alma.
Hello, Alma. I greet it the same way I would greet my friend's dog or cat. Deciding we're not a threat, the mother deer goes to the pond while the baby one creeps even closer. Abigail never moves towards it, never pushing too far. Then it nuzzles her hand, leaning into the soft, scratching motion of her fingers. Is this the deer that was watching you sing the other day?
Most likely. Alma's a little bit shy and sometimes prefers to keep her space.
You know this deer pretty well, huh?
Of course, we're very good friends.
To demonstrate, she strokes Alma's tawny neck. She doesn't even have to sit up to do so, since the fawn's face is just about level with her shoulders from where we're sitting on the ground. Alma closes her eyes, clearly enjoying the attention.
Would you like to pet her? I'm certain she'd let you.
Sure. I lean forward, my hand outstretched like Abigail's was, but the second I move, Alma's eyes go wide and she bounds away into the darkness. Her mother watches, alarmed, from the shoreline. Guess not.
Alma, come back. I promise Madison won't hurt you. She's just as sweet as you are.
I'm glad for the darkness, and that she can't see me blush. While she's not looking, I scoot a little bit closer to Abigail. Just a bit. The hanging fairy baubles help to illuminate the young deer, who watches from a safe distance. None of the fairies themselves seem to be around, though. It takes a bit, with Abigail and I both sitting silently, but the fawn chooses to come back after all. Her steps are still reluctant and ready to dart away at any second. She lets Abigail pet her, but watches me warily while it happens. I don't mind. I'm content to just watch, and enjoy seeing how happy it makes them both. How long have you known Alma? It must have been a while for her to trust you like this.
Oh yes, I've known her for her whole life, and I've known her mother since she was small too.
Abigail waves at the mother deer by the pond, who's returned to sating her thirst. That's amazing. I can only imagine the patience, time, and dedication it must have taken to earn the trust of the woodland creatures. Still, all things considered, I'm not surprised that they'd make an exception for someone like Abigail. She exudes comfort. I'm not sure how else to describe it, and I've certainly never felt anything like it before. Maybe being close to her is just as comforting for the deer as it is for me. Do you have any other animal friends that I'll get to meet?
Oh, certainly, if you'd like. I'm sure Mr. Bear is asleep for the season, but perhaps once he wakes up. There are also a pack of wolves around, but for Alma's sake, that would be best left to another time.
The deer nuzzles her hand in agreement, and Abigail coos contentedly at it.
None are quite so friendly as Alma and the rest of the deer, though. When I was a child, I wanted to have a deer for a pet. I thought that perhaps I could learn to ride one, like a horse. My sister and I would look for footprints in the snow and track them for as long as we could.
She looks up at me, smiling despite the melancholy tone her voice has taken on.
We never got very far, of course. Hardly a few feet into the forest. But to children like us, it was quite an adventure.
You must miss her a lot. Abigail hardly ever mentions her family. I imagine that despite how long it's been, their memories must still be painful. She smiles thinly.
In a sense.
The deer is still luxuriating under her caress. Her hand moves rhythmically and gently, alternating between petting and scratching Alma's neck. She relaxes a little, resting against my side, but continuing to pet the deer.
More than anything, I think I miss the days of wonder and awe, back when the forest and all of its creatures were still a mystery. Sometimes I wish it could be like that again, that it could be unknown.
You wish that you hadn't met them?
No, not at all. At least, not given the circumstances. I'm quite grateful for the companionship they've given me. For so many years, they've been one of the few sources of company that I've had. But while my love for them never diminishes, I've come to the conclusion it's grown to the most it can grow as well. It's simply what the world has become for me, a small world of knowns and nothing more.
She looks away from the deer and back at me. A few tears spot her face, but she doesn't look sad. In fact, she's beaming.
And then I met you, Madison.
Moonlight frames her face. The lovely night sky, the fairy tale friendly deer, the ethereal woman. It's an image straight out of a painting.
You were my first unknown in countless years. The first soul I could speak with that I didn't yet understand. And what a wonderful unknown you turned out to be.
I'm frozen again. I've never had anyone say anything that sweet to me. How am I supposed to respond to something like that? I try to calm my heart as it hammers in my chest. Looking at her soft expression only serves to accelerate its rhythm. Thank you. That's really, really sweet. I think you're wonderful too. Her free hand darts out to grab mine before I have a chance to react as her eyes widen even more, nearly startling the deer away.
Do you really mean that, Madison?
I really do. You're an incredible person. I can't imagine having to go through what you've been through without losing any sort of capacity for joy. But here you are, still so full of energy and positivity. I hope that I can maintain that sort of optimism. Abigail lets go of the deer and flings her arm around me in a tight hug. It's a pretty awkward position because of how we're sitting together, but I don't mind. I hug her back as best as I can. My only anchor in the storm of chaos that my life has become. Indignant, Alma sticks her ears back and darts off towards the trees again. Without letting me go, Abigail cranes her neck to watch, this time not calling the deer back. Alma's mother bounds over to join her daughter, and they both go careening off. I lean my head down to rest against Abigail's in what's become a familiar position. When did we get so comfortable with each other? Being like this just feels natural. She parts from me after a moment. Sitting up straight again, she tilts her head up to the look at the stars, and I gaze with her. The night is mostly clear, except for a few wispy clouds. All is still and quiet and calm. Even the pains of the forest don't seem to reach us here.
I wouldn't call myself an optimist.
I blink, surprised by her sudden words.
I don't, nor have I ever really had, much hope. There are small comforts and delights, but those aren't the same as hope. I can remember names and faces, and even dreams and aspirations that I once had. But do you know what the most curious part of it is?
She glances at me, and I notice tears in her eyes. Without thinking, I reach up and brush them away. No reaction. My heart pounds in my chest, nervous about something that I can't identify, or that maybe I'm unwilling to accept, afraid to be wrong about. What is it?
I can't remember how it felt for those dreams to be within reach. Even with my meager, lonely existence, there was still a chance. As unlikely as it would have been, there was always the possibility that someday, something would change, something might happen. There was a light, so to speak, to look forward to. And the day that I died, that light went out.
More tears, replacing the ones that I wiped away, sparkle in her eyes. I move to repeat the motion from before, but this time she stops my hand, holding them in her own between us.
I never gave thought to what this unlife might be keeping me from. Not from the life I left behind, but whatever it is I would have been met with had I lived to the end of my days. For a long time I considered myself lucky, that I was free from hurt and pain and worry and loss. Even if they were predictable and boring, my years here in the forest haven't been unpleasant. But I've never been optimistic. I've never had anything to look forward to. Never, in my wildest dreams, did I imagine meeting someone as perfect as you. Never did I imagine that I would be happy again.
I understand. I know what she's saying, and more importantly, what she means. A shiver runs down my spine.
But Madison, I don't deserve this happiness. Not at the cost of your own. I keep thinking how if it'd been a bit faster or more decisive, perhaps I could have saved you that day in the snow. And that even if not, I don't know what future I've stolen from you. I don't know what awaits those of us who pass on. All I know is this unlife and its permanence and the way that you deserve better.
She's crying now, fully. Her chest heaves into a sob and I pull her closer to me in as tight a hug as I can manage. As kindly and delicately as I can, as gently as she always treats me. I hold her and sway gently, so much as our position will allow. I can tell, just from the way she cries, that she's been holding this in for a long, long time. I let her let it all out. It must have hurt so bad to be feeling this way. I speak in a whisper. It's not your fault at all. Don't ever blame yourself for any of this. I know I don't. Ever since we met, that day in the forest clearing, all you've done is made things better for me. I don't know if I ever told you this, but during those first days after we met, seeing you again was all that I would look forward to. I'd go to bed thinking about you, and wake up the next morning thinking about you. And as for everything else, to be honest, I don't know how to feel about a lot of it. So much of it is just hard to process. I thought it would get easier with time, but it hasn't. But there is one thing I know. One thing that I'm absolutely sure of. I squeeze her hands and see her startle, just a bit. No matter what I'm missing out on, I'm sure I'd rather be here with you. I mean it. Every word of it. I've never really put too much thought into an afterlife or anything like that, but any time spent here with Abigail is time well spent. And if that means eternity, then, well, so be it. Beside me, Abigail gazes into my eyes wondrously. Her lips move as she searches for the words she wants to say.
Madison.
She shifts so that the starlight caresses her face. Perfect, and yet not nearly as luminous as she is.
kiss you?
For once in my life, I don't overthink it. Yes. Her eyelids flutter and close. Her breathing trembles, then steadies. I empty my head of any other thoughts. And I press my lips to hers. So soft and so warm, as delicate as the fresh fallen snow, as sweet as cotton candy. Her form shivers against me, and I place an arm around her for support, and for comfort, mutually. I can feel her getting more confident and more relaxed, as 200 years of loneliness are melted away one by one, and we're left as just two souls, sharing a first kiss under the night sky. It feels so right. That after we've been through so much sadness and loss, we're now able to share this moment of joy. Not just share it, but to be able to offer it to each other. It's our light at the end of the tunnel. When we finally part, my lips still feel electrified. She regards me with a coy expression, but a happy one.
That was even more wonderful than the many times I imagined it.
I hope it was worth the wait.
I'd wait another 200 years if it was the only way I'd get to kiss you again.
I promise you won't have to. To prove it, I lean forward and give her another quick peck on the lips. Abigail leans against my side yet again. We've done this several times before, but it's never felt like this. It's never felt this right. Everything feels a little bit brighter now. Our next day passes blissfully. We wander the forest, seeing all our favorite spots. The comfort of our new relationship makes the time we spend together even more joyful. Everything is prettier when I'm seeing it with Abigail beside me. Of course, as has become our tradition, we end up back at the mystical fairy grove. We settle into our favorite spots by the shore, with a perfect view of the pond. As much as I love films, I've never been a big fan of romantic scenes. They always feel so forced. The soaring music, the obvious atmosphere, the cheesy dialogue. They're so divorced from real life that I just can't take them seriously. But here I am, watching the sunlight reflect off the shimmering water of the lake as the woman I love leans against me. And I think that maybe those scenes weren't so unrealistic after all.
Madison?
What is it, sweetheart? Sweetheart? I don't use pet names, it's not like me at all. But with her, I feel like it fits.
I know that I've said this before, and I will probably say it many times in the future, but today and yesterday have been some of the happiest days of my life.
Mine too. And it's okay. I'll never get tired of hearing you say that. She smiles at me, as soft as ever, but hidden in her expression and in her tone of voice, I can detect a tinge of sadness. I touch her face, running my thumb across her cheek. She closes her eyes and leans into the motion. Are you feeling okay?
Of course. Why wouldn't I be?
I don't know, you just looked a bit sad. Maybe it was my imagination. I half expect her to deny it, but instead she nods.
You do know how to read me, don't you?
I do. What's wrong? You can tell me anything, I promise. Only if you want to talk about it, of course. She pushes closer to me in response, resting her head against my chest.
This day is so lovely. I don't want to say anything that could spoil it.
You don't have to worry about that, Abigail. I love you, and that means I want to be there for you no matter what. We're going to have plenty of wonderful evenings, I promise. And being open with each other is the best way to make sure they stay wonderful. This is unlike me too. Usually on the first day of a relationship, I'm still a bumbling bag of nerves. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I move too fast or too slow? But it's different with Abigail. That fear isn't there. I can't quite explain why, I just feel like I don't have to worry with her.
I was thinking about other happy days that I've had, how long it's been since then, and how the memories have since soured. How much have I told you about my sister?
Not much. You mentioned that the two of you were close and that you spent a lot of time in the woods together. But that's it.
We weren't just close. Helena and I were inseparable. Whenever anything went wrong, she would always be there to protect me. She swore that that would never change. But fate had other plans for the two of us.
She trails off. Every other time she mentioned her sister, it's only in passing. Her story last night about tracking deer is the only solid detail I have about her. At first, I expect her to stay quiet like before, but instead she keeps talking.
For as long as it's existed, Eysenfeld has had a curse, you could call it. A terrible monster who would destroy the village if given the chance. To appease its terrible rage, we would offer a sacrifice to it. Every generation a new offering would be chosen, but it didn't just want flesh. The head priest would take the sacrifice into the forest to be offered to the horrible spirit. The sacrifice's soul and the head priest's body would both be consumed. Then, the new head priest would emerge, having taken the form of the poor sacrificed victim. It was a painful reminder of those we had lost. When I found that it would be a member of my family who was to be taken and given over, I wasn't shocked. There was only one thing that I cared about. That it wouldn't be my beloved Helena who was harmed.
Her voice wavers before she falls silent. Before I can tell her that she's said enough, she speaks again. Each word shakes as it leaves her mouth.
I couldn't forget the joyous days of our childhood. I couldn't let such a kind soul suffer such a horrible fate. So, when the time came, I offered myself. I volunteered to die so that Helena could live. And in that very moment, where our fates were sealed, I looked at them, at Helena, and do you know what I saw?
Captivated by her tragic story, I can't even answer. I don't move my head or my lips.
Relief. Not once did she try to stop me or change my mind. Not that I would have let her, but I don't think she's even thanked me. My parents cried, of course, but they didn't argue either. Neither of them stepped forward to take my place. No one did. While I'm sure my sacrifice was appreciated, I was quickly discarded without even a token effort or gesture of appreciation. My sister, who had sworn to always protect me, had no difficulty accepting the fact that I would die for her.
What? She just gave you away? Just like that?
If death looms over you for long enough, it corrupts everything. Even love.
It didn't corrupt you?
Perhaps, though I believe that's why I'm still here today.
What do you mean?
The first step of the ritual involved separating the sacrifice's body from its soul. From what she told me as she did it, those poor victims usually tried to resist, begging for someone else to be taken, and when their souls are ripped away, they're too damaged to carry on. But I didn't resist. I went peacefully, and so the gentle forest spirit, who I'd been raised to believe was some kind of demon, eventually came and took me away, and I've been here ever since.
Her words carry a sense of finality. Not knowing what else to do and still stunned by her story, I simply lean closer to her and pull her into an embrace. There aren't any words that could be enough. Physical comfort is all I can offer. To my surprise, though, when she finally pulls away from me, she looks happier than before. Just like I did earlier, she touches my cheek gently and then leans in for a kiss.
Thank you for listening. I've told the one person who matters, and now I think I can heal.
I know, sweetheart. I love you. More than anything.
I love you too. More than anything.
She sighs contently and leans against my shoulder. She takes my hand, intertwines her fingers with mine. We sit there for a long time. We don't say anything. We don't even move. All we do is watch the sky and feel each other's heartbeats.